Ladies and gentlemen, our next speaker is the State Director of New South Wales and Global Manager of Refugee and Humanitarian Visas and Global Manager for Family Visas. Please join me to welcome to the stage Mr. Kruno Kukoc.
Thank you. Senator, the Honourable Concerta Fierravanti-Wells, Parliamentary Secretary to the Ministry of Social Services, Federal and State members, Mr. Hamish Shane, Deputy Secretary General of the Assyrian Universal Alliance, Mr. David, President of the Assyrian Australian National Federation, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to thank Mr. Shane, Mr. David and the organising committees of the Assyrian Universal Alliance and the Assyrian Australian National Federation for your kind invitation for me to attend today's event and address this event. It is my great pleasure to be here with you in Fairfield as we get it together to celebrate the most important day of the Assyrian calendar. There are more than 15,000 people of Assyrian descent living in New South Wales. 4 generations of Australian Assyrians have built a significant presence in the city of Fairfield, the heart of your community in Australia. You have worked hard to build an array of organisations and institutions which provide support to the community, in particular assisting humanitarian and refugee arrivals start their new lives in Australia. Your industriousness, courage and resilience, values for which have sustained your society for more than 65 centuries, have enabled the Assyrian community to make a valuable contribution to Australia's cultural, sporting and economic achievements. Of note, and I know there are many high achievers in your community, I'd like to mention Ms. Sue Ismail, who has created a successful natural health and personal care company, and the football player Ms. Alina Kamis, who has brilliantly represented Australia in the Under-19 World Cup. My department, the Department of Immigration and Border Protection, has a long history of working closely with the Assyrian community, both here in Australia and abroad. And we will continue to work with and to consult your community closely on all visa matters and on all citizenship matters. That will be in particular regarding the humanitarian and family visas and citizenship. In the last 5 years alone, 1,200 of Assyrians were granted humanitarian visas. At this point, I would also like to mention the important role that my colleagues in the Department of Social Services have in supporting the Australia's multicultural and settlement policy and maintaining Australia as a cohesive and multicultural society. This festival provides a great opportunity for the wider community to embrace Assyrian culture and its traditions. The Assyrian New Year Festival is a mark of new beginnings and aspirations for all. It is a day to move forward and to herald a fertile and prosperous new year. I know that the success of these very special events rely on the dedication and tireless efforts of many volunteers around us, and I would like to pass on my thanks and appreciation to you all for successful organisation of this event. On behalf of the Department of Immigration and Border Protection, I wish you all the best for this New Year Festival and for the coming year ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kukoc. Ladies and gentlemen, our next speaker is well known for his determination in promoting the Assyrian national cause. He supported all the Assyrian Universal Alliance motions in the State Parliament and supports the Assyrian rights back home as well. Please join me in welcoming the Honourable David Clark, MLC, Parliamentary Secretary for Justice, Deputy Chairman of the Assyria Parliamentary Friendship Group.
Well, distinguished guests and dear friends in the Assyrian Australian community, it's a great honour and joy to be here today representing the Premier of New South Wales, Barry O'Farrell, at this New Year's Assyrian celebration organised by the Assyrian Universal Alliance and the Assyrian Australian National Federation, and by the end of tonight some 10 to 15,000 members of the Assyrian community would have passed through this great festival being held here today. And can I pay my respects to His Beatitude, Bishop Mamil Isaiah, who gives such leadership to the Assyrian community. And today we grieve with him and other religious because of the persecution of the church, the murder of its bishops, the murder of its priests and nuns, the desecration of its church, the burning of its churches by Islamist terrorists in Syria and in Iraq. And when the final victory comes of the Assyrian people, and when the final chapter is written in that book, the name of his grace, the Beatitude, Mamil Isaiah will figure there in prominence because he is a man of great integrity, a man cast in a hero's mould. Can I pay respects also to other ethnic communities who are here today because they've come along to give solidarity to the Assyrian people in their struggle for freedom, their struggle against international terrorism. Can I acknowledge that my parliamentary federal colleagues who are here, that each and every one of them have devoted themselves to supporting the Assyrian cause, and I acknowledge that. Whether it's from Labor or Liberal, whether it's from government or opposition, they're all there supporting the cause, and that is a wonderful thing. Can I also acknowledge my state parliamentary colleagues, especially those involved in the New South Wales Parliamentary Friends of the Assyrians, the Chairman Andy Rohan, the Deputy Chair together with myself, Guy Zangari, and members who are here, Glenn Brooks, Tanya Davies, Paul Green, and of course the great and wonderful and the one and only Fred Nile, all great members of the Parliamentary Friends of the Assyrians. And friends, can I tell you how proud I am to be here today, knowing that the New South Wales Parliament is the second parliament in the world after the Parliament of Sweden to officially recognise the genocide of 750,000 Assyrians under the Ottoman Empire. How proud I am that we have recognised that as the second parliament in all of the world. And I praise the Honourable Fred Nile for moving that in the upper house, and I praise the Premier of New South Wales for moving that resolution in the lower house, a resolution that was carried by every single member of the state parliament, every single member of all the parties. What a great and wonderful thing that was. Now there were some who didn't like that. We know who they are, the usual suspects. They tried to intimidate the New South Wales Parliament. They tried to threaten the members of the New South Wales Parliament. But the members of the Parliament of New South Wales will not be intimidated, and they will not be threatened by people who are genocide deniers. Not now and not ever will we be intimidated by these people. Can I tell you also how proud I am that only 11 days ago a resolution was moved by the Reverend the Honourable Fred Nile in the upper house of New South Wales supporting an autonomous region of Assyria, an autonomous region, and can I tell you it was carried by every member of the upper house of New South Wales. That is a first in the world, the first parliament to officially declare for an autonomous region, an autonomous state within Iraq. That is a great and wonderful achievement. Greater things are ahead for us, I have no doubt about that. Today, I join with other members in expressing outrage for the continuing persecution of the Assyrian people. For 2,000 years on and off, that persecution has continued against them because they refused to surrender their Christian faith. There was the genocide under the Ottoman Empire. There was the persecution under Saddam Hussein. Today there is the violence and murder of the Islamist terrorists in Iraq and Syria, but the terrorists will never succeed in subduing and conquering the Assyrian people. Friends, today is a great day to celebrate the achievements of the Assyrians, a people whose heritage goes back 7,000 years, a people who are mentioned in the Bible in the very earliest pages of that great book, a people who built at its time the greatest empire of the world, a people who were leaders in science and astronomy and other achievements for mankind, a people who built great cities like Nineveh and Babylon and the very first city in the history of mankind. I thank you for the invitation to be here today. I thank the Premier for asking me to represent him. When you ask me to come, I will come. When you ask me to speak, I will speak. When you ask me to do something, then I will do what you ask me to do, because it is for a good and noble purpose, a good and noble cause, for a good and noble people, for the Assyrian people and for the Assyrian nation. You ask me to do those things, and I will do them and join with the other members of the federal and state parliaments in working for those things. A nation who for 7,000 years has contributed to mankind. A nation who for 2,000 years has held fast to Christianity in the face of persecution and genocide. And a nation whose members through the Assyrian levies fought side by side with Australians in World War I, and who fought side by side with Australians in World War II, and who now fight side by side with all men and women of goodwill and decency and freedom around the world in working for the defeat of international Islamist terrorism. A war that we will win, we have no doubt about that. In my heart of hearts, dear friends, I believe that the Assyrian nation will never be destroyed. For 2,000 years they've been faithful to God. They've given testimony that our blessed Lord is indeed the Prince of Peace and the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords, the Alpha and the Omega and the beginning and the end. The Assyrian people have never deserted God, and God will not desert his Assyrian faithful either. Have no doubt about that. The Ottoman Empire is dead and buried. Saddam Hussein is dead and buried. International Islamic terrorism will be buried as well. The day is coming when the Assyrians will gain that autonomy and that freedom and that independence. That day is getting closer. That day will soon be here. Have a great 6,764th Assyrian New Year. God bless Australia, and God bless the Assyrian people and the Assyrian nation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Clark. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to call upon our next speaker, who is the Deputy Chair for the Assyrian Parliamentary Friendship Group. Please welcome the Friend of Assyria and the State Member for Fairfield, Shadow Minister for Citizenship and Communications and Shadow Minister for Sport and Recreation, Mr. Guy Zangari MP.
Well, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. How do you follow up after David Clark? One thing you learn in politics, they said, never do a speech after David. But obviously, as you know, David Clark is a true champion for the Assyrian people, and it is great to work with David in State Parliament as his co-chair of the Assyrian Parliamentary Friendship Group. Well done to you, David. First of all, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of this land, of course, the Cabral people of the Darug Nation, and pay my respects to their elders, both past and present. To the Mayor of Fairfield City Council, Councillor Frank Carboni, to Father Ninos Elia, to Hermes Shaheen, to David, and of course to Simon Esavian, to David Clark, my parliamentary colleague and Deputy Chair of the Assyrian Parliamentary Friendship Group, to federal, state and local government representatives, to Superintendent Peter Lennon from Fairfield LAC, to the Assyrian members of our community here in Fairfield. Hanimi umiakre, shlama lokon, sheta atureda brikta alhon, alaha baruk lohon, abitun basime. It is a great pleasure, ladies and gentlemen, that I represent, of course, the Leader of the New South Wales Labor Opposition, John Robertson. John unfortunately couldn't be here this afternoon, but he does send his best wishes for this very, very special occasion. I would also like to firstly thank the Australian chapter of the Assyrian Universal Alliance, in particular Mr. Hermes Shaheen, the Deputy Secretary General of the AUA, and of course to my very good friend Mr. David, the chairperson of the Working Committee, for all their tireless work in advocating for the plight of Assyrians in the diaspora, but especially here in our home in Fairfield. Ladies and gentlemen, it is a great pleasure to celebrate the Assyrian New Year with you all. And to each and every one of you, happy 6,764th New Year. It is significant, of course, that we celebrate the Assyrian New Year here at the Fairfield City Showground. Fairfield, as you know, ladies and gentlemen, is home to more Assyrians than any other local government area in the country. And I am very proud of this, and I know that Chris Bowen, Chris Hayes and Nick Lullich, as members who represent in the Fairfield local government area, are very proud of this as well. And it is here in Fairfield, ladies and gentlemen, we see the great contributions of the Assyrian community that they make not only to Fairfield, but to Sydney, New South Wales, and of course the wider Australian community. Whether it's from small business, education, social justice, youth development, migrant assistance and faith development, just to name a few. But of course the Assyrian community has embraced Australia, and Australia is made the richer by the contributions of the Assyrian Australians. Of course the politics of Assyria and the struggles and the plight have been mentioned previously by my speakers with so much passion and enthusiasm. So I would like to do in my address, ladies and gentlemen, something about the very people that I represent in State Parliament that makes this community what it is today. And I can honestly say that I see it every single day in Fairfield, living and breathing in this community, the outstanding work of so many Assyrian legends. And when I think of Assyrian legends, I look no further than this year's Fairfield City Council Award Australia Day Award winners. Everyday individuals, ladies and gentlemen, caring and nurturing for the residents of Fairfield. And it's legends, ladies and gentlemen, like Basim Shamon, the Youth Citizen of the Year, who is sitting on my immediate right. A young and enthusiastic community representative who always puts himself before others and puts others first. Basim is a true role model in every sense by the way he involves himself in charity and humanitarian causes. And of course, no task is ever too big or small for Basim. Then there is, ladies and gentlemen, the Achievement Medallion recipient, Mr. Albert Mushi. Albert, who is sitting on my immediate left. Albert, like Basim, puts others first, always putting others first. Such is Albert's love of people. He never complains about his problems, but always has the time to listen and help others. And to let you know about the help that he does, that Albert, of course, has been struggling lately with some issues, but he was here until 12 o'clock last night helping the AUA and the Federation set up, and that's the type of person that Albert is, and I thank him especially. But ladies and gentlemen, there are younger people as well, like Mr. Dean Odisho, who like Basim and Albert is actively involved in the community, giving of his time generously and once again putting others before self. And then finally there is one lady that deserves really no introduction, but her name speaks for itself, and I refer to, of course, Carmen Lazar. Carmen Lazar, OAM. Carmen, to you on behalf of your community, I thank you. Yes, give Carmen a round of applause. I take my hat off to Carmen because at the Assyrian Resource Centre at the Crescent in Fairfield, every single hour between 50 to 60 people are in that small little foyer coming in for assistance. And they are not only Assyrian, they are people of all walks of life. And that speaks volumes about the Assyrian community that we have here. Not only extending the hand of friendship to the Assyrian community, but extending the hand of friendship to all people in the 130 different nationalities that we have here in Fairfield. So ladies and gentlemen, I can go on and on and on. But if I did, we would be here until next week. acknowledging the wonderful work that the Assyrians play here in our community of Fairfield. So once again, I would like to congratulate Basim, Albert, Carmen and Dean, who make Fairfield, New South Wales and Australia great. Ladies and gentlemen, I am proud to call the Assyrian community a friend, and I wish each and every one of you a happy Assyrian New Year. Thank you and God bless you all this year.
Thank you, Mr. Zangari. Ladies and gentlemen, our next speaker is an integral part of the Young Assyrians of the Assyrian Universal Alliance. Please welcome to the stage the Vice Chair of the Young Assyrians, Mr. George Dadisho.
Thank you, Ninos. As introduced, my name is George Dadisho and I'm an active member of the Young Assyrians. I am often asked, what does the Assyrian New Year mean to me? Before I begin, we need to understand what this day represents. Why is it celebrated? And conclude with, what does it mean to me and to each other? Firstly, Rishit Shita, head or start of the year, or Chab Nisan, the 1st of April, is a spring festival celebrated amongst Assyrians throughout the world. The festival is tied to the vernal equinox, which is the astronomical event where the sun crosses the celestial equator and marks the first day of spring. It is also the time where day and night are approximately the same all over the earth. The official Assyrian calendar is based on an estimated date of the first temple at Ashur, which was built in the same spirit. The Akkadian name of the spring festival, called Akitu, was revived. The Assyrian people have celebrated Akitu on the first day of April since 4750 BC. Akitu, derived from the Sumerian language meaning barley, marked two festivals celebrating the beginning of each of the 2.5 years of the Sumerian calendar. The first marking the sowing of barley in autumn, and the second being the cutting of barley in spring. It was the spring festival celebrated in ancient Mesopotamia that has continued throughout the ages until today. As of 2014, of the year of our Lord and Saviour, it is the Assyrian year 6764. Assyrians celebrate Chab Nisan by holding social events, including parades and parties, gather in social institutions, to listen to poets recite the story of creation, musicians who sing praises for the long history, and academics educating others on the meaning of this event. It is also a tradition in Assyrian villages for girls to gather flowers and herbs, which are then suspended under the house's roof. The bunches are referred to as Ditlit Nisan, meaning the beard of April or spring. The event is largely celebrated by Assyrians across the globe, including Syria, Iran, Canada, Sweden, Georgia, Germany, New Zealand, Russia, Ukraine and Armenia. One of the largest Assyrian New Year celebrations took place in Iraq in 2008, whereby over 60,000 people took part in the parade and preceding celebrations. In Turkey, the celebration of this festival was banned. Assyrians in Turkey were only first allowed to publicly celebrate Chab Nisan in 2005 after organisers received permission from the government to stage the event. This was in light of democratic reforms adopted in support of Turkey's EU membership bid. Around 5,000 people, including large groups of visiting ethnic Assyrians from Europe, Syria and Iraq, took part in Chab Nisan celebrations in Turkey. In the USA, the Honourable George Radonovich of the California State Assembly recognised the Assyrian New Year and extended his wishes to the Assyrian community. This was later followed by a letter from the then Californian Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger to the Assyrian community in California, congratulating him on this annual celebration. In Chicago, Illinois, it has become tradition to hold a parade down King Sargon Boulevard with Assyrian organisations, churches and businesses, each creating a float and participating in the joyous parade. In Australia, the Assyrian New Year Festival has been going strongly. The Assyrian New Year Festival has been held in Fairfield Showground to accommodate the 10 to 15,000 participants that you currently see and will see throughout the day today. So finally, what does the Assyrian New Year mean to me? It represents hope. A hope that springs inside of me for people not only scattered across the globe, but those in their ancestral homeland. It gives those an opportunity for new beginnings and an opportunity to create history in the hearts and minds of people around the world. By being here today, you have made me a proud Australian, someone who will be at the forefront of truth and honour, and someone who is a supporter of human rights and freedom. Every day I'm speaking to Australians from all walks of life who no longer believe in the motto, "She'll be right, mate," because she won't be unless each and every one of us takes action. When you think of a New Year's resolution, you think of something you want to achieve for that year. For me, my resolution will be to help my people achieve freedom in their homeland. My dream is for the Assyrian people to live in freedom and democracy, to live in peace and harmony with the rest of the world, and to keep their customs and culture alive as they see fit. This is my New Year's resolution, and I'll continue to strive for this every day. So I ask you as an Assyrian Australian, add this to your list of resolutions for this year and the years ahead, to help the Assyrian people achieve the most basic of human rights in their ancestral homeland and to live free of fear and genocide. Thank you, and I wish you all a safe and prosperous Assyrian New Year. Thank you.
Thank you, George.